loud and clear. Good evening, everyone. Welcome up to the BroDiallo show. Got a lot to get into and very little time, so I'm not going to waste nobody's time. Let me tell y'all, I'm not wasting y'all time. I'm not going to be talking about Umar. Y'all notice I'm calling Dr. Umar again. I'm not talking about Umar today, but y'all notice I'm calling him Umar today. Because I feel like me and Umar, we have a certain connection that we didn't have before. So I know y'all used to me for the last decade talking about Dr. Fubar, calling him Dr. Fubar, and articulating my disdain for Dr. Umar. Now, I'm not even really mad at Dr. Fubar, Dr. Umar. I'm not mad at him. I'm mad at y'all. Because y'all created that goddamn monster. Y'all gave that man $1.7 million. Y'all bought his books. Y'all flew him coast to coast and overseas. But I have a connection with Dr. Fubar now that I didn't have before. So maybe I'll set aside my differences. Maybe I will set aside my differences. Brothers and sisters, I will set down my differences. Because Dr. Fubar is being torn to shreds. I don't know if y'all follow this. See, my favorite thing to watch on YouTube is I like Prospero's books and some other. I like to watch authors give talks and Q&A on their books. But what my favorite thing to watch on YouTube is besides the BroDiallo show and the African World Order channel, which I'm sure you guys have all subscribed to. My favorite thing to watch on YouTube is 40K lore. That's my favorite thing. When I have time to listen to YouTube or playing, I play 40K lore quite a bit. And I was on my phone and I can't remember what I was setting up to do. I think my son, he didn't break my lawnmower. My lawnmower just mysteriously stopped working while he was using it. And I'm like, okay, let me just put on something to listen to and go take this thing apart and tinker with it. Because, that's one of the first things my great-grandfather taught me was how to work on lawnmowers, how to prime the engine. But this is a battery-powered lawnmower. He taught me on, gas-powered lawnmower. That's a whole different thing. So I look at and I scroll on YouTube and I see all these I didn't know it was so many channels dedicated to Dr. Fubar. And he was beefing with this sister from Kansas City. Now that's my connection with Fubar, because the first girl I ever had a crush on is a Kansas City girl. And if Fubar had just reached out to me, I could have warned him. Because, these sisters from the coast, no. See, the schedule's confused. I'm on African World Order on Wednesdays and Fridays. Over here on Mondays. Ain't today Monday? Yes. So anyway, I could have warned Dr. Fubar, man, don't mess with these Kansas City sisters because, a sleazy, scuzzy, two-bit comment like yourself, you're not ready for Kansas City sisters. See, there's this myth that the sisters on the coast, these Cali, and people make songs about the girls, roundaway girls in New York, and the California girls, and the Florida girls getting jiggy with it. People make all these songs about women, sisters all over the coast in the major cities. You notice ain't no songs about Kansas City. They stopped making songs about sisters in Kansas City like in the 1940s. Kansas City, here I come. They got some pretty little women there. And see, the thing about a sister from the Midwest, she don't play like that. Like these sisters are a confluence. Like they literally call the Midwest, Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas and Missouri, the heart of America. So the sisters there deal with Southern racism and big city racism at the same time. They deal with Southern issues and Southern bullshit and big city bullshit all together, right? They got in the Midwest, they got backwood trailer park rednecks and sophisticated tea-sipping racist, academic, intellectual racist, all together. So you can't run that game. You've been running on sisters in Philly, sisters in Harlem, even sisters in Accra, sisters in Cali, the chocolate mousse, velvet chocolate, thick thighs, not all that shit you say. You can't run that shit on a sister from the Midwest. And I'd have told them that. Tell you about yourself. So now they say Umar, Dr. Fubar's accounts have been frozen. He was long ago kicked off of like GoFundMe. Now he's kicked off of PayPal. His assets are frozen. He's under investigation from elder care services and Section 8 housing. His housing is being threatened. And I'd have told, look, Dr. Fubar, you don't run your scam in KC. In Kansas City, dog. Even like Kansas City, you can't even tell where her brother's from. Like my wife, when we go to Kansas City, she'd be like, how half your family sound like New England, Northeastern Negroes, and other of your family sound like down South Bamas, all in the same family. How come half your family got a Southern twang and the other family has like a Northern slang? Like, how did y'all even manage that? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So let me tell you, the rest of you, learn, y'all, you grifters, you hustlers, you con men, you two-bit scumbags, out here calling black women the queen, out here demanding that black men get with black women, while in your own life you have not been able to cultivate or sustain a healthy, mutually beneficial relationship with a black woman. You haven't raised your own children, but you're going to open up a school to save the rest of our children. The rest of you two-bit comment, stay clear of Kansas City, sisters. Kansas City racist as hell, backwards, all the negative shit. And, you know, sister got enough problems. Stay away from Kansas. And now Umar, he been conning y'all for 2 decades, scamming y'all for 2 decades, then ran off with on the plug. And y'all the plug, the black community, he done ran off on the community more than once. Then scammed, dished y'all, called y'all trifling, been caught in every lie he ever told, get caught. And now he went and ran that scam on a sister from Kansas City. I'm going to see my big sister later this week. I'll be in Kansas City in a few days. My sister's a Kansas City girl. I don't play with my sister. I don't argue with my big sister. Everything will be shut down. Y'all come on the BroDiallo page and it'll be blocked. Hey, shout out to the sisters from Kansas City. I knew if anybody was going to take down that 2-bit half-wit Dr. Fubar, it would be a sister from Kansas City. You know, and like I said, my first and second crush was on a Kansas City girl, born and raised in Kansas City. I knew when I was 15 years old not to play with them sisters. My grandma is a Kansas City woman. My great aunt, Kansas City, my sister, my Aunt Vaughn, Big Uncle Chris' wives. I'm telling you, Fubar, you should have called me. You know I'm from Kansas City. I still rep Kansas City, 75th Street, East Hills Village. I could have told you. I could have told Fubar, man, your account's going to be shut down. You're going to be, you know, Fubar went online a few days ago and was like, this is my first time ever asking for money. So, you know, me and Fubar got that connection. We both been wrung out by sisters from Kansas City. Even the conscious stripper couldn't bring him down. Sukiyana couldn't tighten him up. Where's Sukiyana from? I should have known. Because before I'm like, why is Dr. Fubar trending now? What he done did now? What he done said now? And they were like, Dr. Fubar. And Fubar, saw him online. He was like, yeah, I'm messing with this stroke goat. I'm like, oh, he bumping heads with another one of his victims. Another woman he didn't ran game on. He just bumping head. And he was like, yeah, and this sister, she's from Kansas City. And I'm like, what? Oh, shit. He ain't gonna come back. He ain't bouncing back from that. So next time you sniffing around the Midwest. Now I got me a Midwestern sister, but I got one that is Chicago by way of Mississippi. So really I'm with a Southern girl, twice removed. I just can't hang. Shout out to all my homies. Rip the Crip. Shout out to all my homies that are with Kansas City sisters and Kansas City. Shout out to you brothers that held that down. Everybody ain't that strong, as Gil Scott Heron said in Home is Where the Hatred Is. Anyway, moving on. It's hysterical. But let me just say this one more time, because I mean this sincerely. Brothers got to help brothers. Dr. Fubar. I'm sorry. I keep trying to say Dr. Umar. I'm sympathetic. I understand your plight now. Beyond all the money you stole, beyond all the lies you told, all the scapegoating you did, all the deflection and deception, misdirection. Despite all of that, I understand I understand, man. You should have kept your game on the coast, man. You should have kept running them games in Philly, DC, DMV, ran that game in NYC, Uptown, ran that game on the Bay Area, LA. You know, you could even ran game in Texas. If you know, even like I heard they love him in Louisiana, Flow Rider. You could have went to Flow Rider with that shit. Don't come to the Midwest. Don't come to the Bible Belt. Don't come to the heart of America with that shit. You're going to get done up every time, man. So if you ever do get your bank account, if this latest hustle don't really take you down, then he going to talk about he going to get that sister locked up, man. You're going to end up locked up trying to get a Kansas City sister locked up. And let me tell you, like they said, don't hurt Kansas City. And I tell you, growing up, man, and no lie, I don't know if Rip is with us today. I had to call him, tell him I'm coming to Kansas City. How many times when we was growing up, it'd be some dude from the West Coast. They come to the Midwest. They come to Kansas City. They come to Independence, Blue Spring. They be down on Independence, 18th Street, and they be like, I'm about to run game. They think they coming from the big cities to teach us and to run us like, yo, this is a quiet little backwater town. How many dudes from the coast, from New York, Cali, and all the big coasts, how many dudes used to come to Kansas City and try to set up shop? Try to come with that big city gang and then get ran right out of town? And St. Louis is worse than Compton. I mean, from the 90s. I'm talking about the 90s. I ain't talking about right now. But back then, when we was coming up, anyway, let's get moving. I just want to express my sympathy and solidarity because now, finally, Dr. Fubar and I got something in common. We never had nothing in common before because y'all show and gave me no $1 million. In fact, what little support I was getting dried up. What I do? What did I say? Tell me what I said or did. What I done did to because, man, you know, all the support and contributions I used to be getting dried up. And I was sitting prepping for this show today like, man, community ain't showing me no love. Y'all done gave, I ain't ran off with the bag. I'm here fulfilling my obligation to the best of my ability. But I don't have enough scandal in my life. That's what it is. With my contributions kicked because Dr. Fubar, nothing, day-to-day scandals and bumping heads over nonsense. Is that what y'all want? Go find me a mistress and be like, look, Dr. Mingo. That's what I call my wife. Listen, had to get them YouTube revenues up. Had to get them donations. Had to get them cash apps. That's the only reason I'm over here with her. I'll be home by dinner. Calm down. Let me stop playing. It was just going across the stream. BroDiallo, everything cash out, all that. It's ways you can contribute and support are going. Okay, let's go. First thing I'm going to do, I'm getting back on schedule. But I blame y'all for Dr. Fubar. Because let me tell you something. Right now, today, we have leaders and prominent figures of all calibers. Right now, today, we got Garveys in the streets. We got Malcolms in the streets. We got Kwame Nkrumahs and Patrice Lumumba's on the continent. At any given time, at any point in history, when our leaders, when we were represented by Garvey, when Garvey was running, when Carlos Cooks was run things, when the Black Panthers run things, When we had good quality leadership at the exact same time, we had con men, hustlers, and 2-bit scam artists were out there too. At any given time in history, there are always all calibers, from the highest caliber leadership to the lowest scumbags. So the only difference between us having a Malcolm X being prominent or us having a Farrakhan or a Dr. Fubar, the only difference is who the people are giving our energy and attention to. Dale Jones said the leaders don't choose the times choose the leader. The leader don't get out front of the people put the leader out front. So the quality of our leadership reflects the quality of the consciousness of our community. So victim blaming, it is so fun. I see why reactionaries, while non-critical thinkers blame victim. Victim blaming is so fun. Anyway, now I'm getting back. First thing I said, a lot of times I don't get to questions, so I said leave some questions. Leave your questions in the comments of the previous video, and I'll get to them on the next video. So I'm going to make good on that. But again, you might leave a question on the BroDiallo show, and then I'll answer it on AWO. You might leave a comment on Rational Radicals or Class Con on AWO, and I might answer it here. So, be a part of the community. It's all in together now. We're going to make it more better now. So these are questions from the last 2 weeks that people left in the comments, right? And some of y'all getting greedy with the comments, like leaving a lot. And this is going to be a crash course. If we have to revisit it and come back and do a whole show, we can, because these are some good questions. One question is there a way to get your complete back archives? I'm trying to get my, because I have a lot of, I started doing radio before I came to YouTube. I was on radio. So I have some MP3s of the old radio show, and I'm trying to get this up on YouTube or DialloKenyatta.com or AWA. I'm working on ways, but there's a large backlog of videos on YouTube right now and on African World Order. If you're on African World Order, you'll notice I'll periodically post some older discussions and interviews that weren't there. So, but right now, DialloKenyatta.com, YouTube, and those are the ways. But I am working on getting both my audio and compiling some other stuff, interviews. I've actually been part of documentary films, and see if I can get some of those documentary films that I was in posted up from back in the day. I've been around for a while. I actually gave some other lectures. I've given lectures at NYU at Black Solidarity Day. I spoke at Mackey's study group way back in the day. It's funny, my son, who just had a birthday a couple of weeks ago, you could hear him crying in the background of one of the videos, Liberation, Tangible and Internable. So I'm working on it, but it's just this. See these two hands? They're not, wow, I thought, that's not as impressive as I thought it would be. My hands aren't as calloused as they used to be. They're kind of, but my fingertips are calloused from typing all the time. I don't know if that works, but hey, my hands are actually, it's my wife's fault. That whipped shea butter she be putting on next to my sink. I don't know what's in there, but these two hands is all I got right now. That's my point. But I appreciate people looking for it, and MP3s. And I also, all of my content is made for, is in the public domain and fair use. So there are other people like chopping and screwing and remixing and editing my stuff. And so they're out there too. If you can find them, I don't strike anybody, even people that want to cut my shit up and try to distort what I say and then rebut what I didn't say. That's all in the game, yo. But DialloKenyatta.com, you want to keep an eye out for that as I update that, because that'll probably in the near future, before the end of the summer, that's going to be a place where you can get archives. And what really happened is I put had hundreds of radio programs and radio broadcasts when I was at Q4 Radio up on the site, and then it crashed and I lost a lot of shit. I mean, I have the files, but I lost a lot of the layout. Okay, and then The second question in the show called Solutions: How to Overthrow Capitalism and White Hegemony, you said the solution is revolutionary Pan-Africanism and scientific socialism. Can you kindly recommend which books you find most important to understand the concepts? See, here's the thing. Let me just say, I'll give some books. I'll definitely give some books. But if you are a conscious, revolutionary, committed African, every book you read should inform your mission. I'm an atheist, but reading the Bible, the Quran, reading scriptures help to inform. Just like how a racist, how a Nazi, how a fascist can find fascism wherever they look. That's where we have to be. There is insights, information, analysis, understanding, and everything we ourselves, our vessels should be the filter that synthesizes and constructs Pan-African ideology and then articulates it back out. But I got some books here. Some books I pulled off the shelf. Some other I didn't feel like looking for, but A History of Pan-African Revolution, C.L.R. James. This calls it Black nationalism because this book, the author of this book, this dates back to the 1930s, World War II era. So Black nationalism, Pan-Africanism, even though it existed, many Pan-Africanists didn't use that term, but Carlos Cooks and Black nationalism, The Wretched of the Earth, believe it or not, I think gives great insights in how to construct and how to think and conceptualize who we are as oppressed people and how we become a cohesive force. Where are the other? Where did I put the other? I think those are good. But Who Betrayed the African Movement? Where is that? I actually pulled up a link. A lot of times, if you want to understand something, you got to look at how it fell. We do a lot of times in African studies, like I could recommend, which I'm not saying the books are bad, that talk about the grandeur and the accomplishments of African people. And we want to hear about our great heroes. But maybe, let me speak for myself. I learn a lot more from the failures than I do the successes. So when I was reading about African history, my introduction, I was reading we were kings and mothers and fathers of civilizations and our great victories and our great, reading about how the Haitian Revolution was won is inspiring, but reading how it was systematically undermined, reading about our brothers and sisters in the streets, the Black Panthers, the African Liberation Army, even the SNCC, and how SNCC moved from a nonviolent integrationist and evolved into a more militant wing of the civil rights movement, reading about those successes, but reading how COINTELPRO and other enemies from within and without deconstruction. So if you're trying to learn about a movement, sorry, it's not there. Where's this thing at? They changed the configuration. Here it is. Here's another book. Who Betrayed the African Movement by John Henry Clark. My cover doesn't look like that. I got the one with the green and yellow cover. I wonder if this is, but anyway, this is a good book. And you can download the entire PDF. But Who Betrayed the African Revolution and Other Speeches by John Henry Clark. And I'm going to put that in the comments right now. That's the link to the PDF. So that's another book. But so those are some books. There are a lot of good books. Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey and African Fundamentalism by Tony Martin. I mean, there are dozens of books, but that's just some. Right? So that's the second question. The next question. In a previous show, you mentioned most or all of Mao Zedong's, he just said Mao's, I was talking about Mao Zedong, writing was a response to global white hegemony. Can you kindly explain on what that, what more details and or examples? And also, you think Mao's thoughts or ideas that may have relevant to our own struggles and what parts of his ideas? Yes. Mao, the entire Chinese Revolution was a byproduct of European imperialism. And Mao's whole purpose was to oust the colonizers, the European colonizers, number one, and number two, reinforce Chinese society in such a way that they can't be reconquered. That's what we forget to do. Remember, Del Jones said the white man is more deadly at the negotiation table than he is on the battlefield. And you look at so many countries that defeat European imperialism only to have the Europeans come in through the back door through peaceful means, send in, or as Kwame Ture, and reconquer. But Kwame Ture says they send in the missionaries. They always send in the missionaries and the diplomats before they send in the Marines. And if you defeat the Marines, then they come through the back door and sends the missionaries and the diplomats again. So Mao had this concept that he understood that even though we have a great civilization that's over 5,000 years old, that civilization succumbed to European imperialism, to the British Opium Wars. So there is a vulnerability within our culture. There is a vulnerability within the society collectively and with the hearts of individuals that makes us vulnerable to European aggression. And so we have to not only oust the colonizers, we have to create a new Chinese person. We need to redefine what it is to be Chinese. And he had this thing that was brilliant called the Four Odes. The Four Odes. Old ideas, old culture, old customs, old habits. See, a lot of Afrocentric people, you'll find a lot of Black revolutionaries, when they become conscious, they want to get a traditional African name. They want to wear traditional African garb. They want to worship traditional African ancestors and Orisha and gods. They want to eat traditional African food. And they want to return to Africa without ever examining why are these things that I agree are wonderful, are beautiful, why were they so vulnerable and continue to be vulnerable? So they don't want to they'll criticize anything a modern Black person does. They'll criticize what we do. We as a people need to do this. We need to do this. We need to do that. But they never, if you question anything Africans did 1,000 years ago, if you question anything about the Dogon in antiquity and the Egyptians or the Comedians or the Nubians in antiquity or the Zulus, if you question anything about pre-colonial Africa, you're a sellout. To suggest that pre-colonial Africa was anything other than the greatest and highest form of humanity to many conscious Black people. And because we seek so much to replicate our history, we want to replicate. You got Black folks, we need to rebuild they want to literally rebuild the pyramids. How many Black folks' houses have I been over where they got scale model pyramids? I'm sorry, hold on. How many Black people's houses have I been over where they got scale model pyramids? You know, we want to recreate the past when we need to revolutionize our culture, not repeat. So Mao did that unpleasant and hard work. And a lot of Chinese people, past and present, hate him for it. But the bottom line is, yes, everything he did, Mao wouldn't have, without European and colonialism, without opium wars, without resource theft and extraction, without the massacres and the famines, there would have been no Mao. So that's what I mean by saying, you know, our revolutionaries are a byproduct of our oppression. Healthy, balanced societies don't need revolutionaries. And that's why a lot of times revolutionaries are not very good at governing. They're not very good administrators because revolutions are bloody and meant to be fought. And a lot of revolutionaries have a hard time transitioning from the struggle to maintenance and security. Even Mao had that issue, to be honest. So anyway, that's my answer to that. Where is it? In previous show you mentioned. Okay. Another one is a caller on your recent show about Dr. Sadie mentioned Neely Fuller. What are your thoughts on Neely Fuller? Where do you think his ideas align with the solution for Pan-Africanism and scientific socialism, and where do they not? What do you think Fuller's most important contributions, ideas? And so here are my thoughts on Neely Fuller. I think Neely Fuller, which a lot of people do, he had a very good analysis. He had very poor solutions. He had a thorough analysis with absurd solutions. I would call his solutions absurd. Neely Fuller basically broke down what was, and I'll use his term, white supremacy. I don't like that term, but that's what he said. He said white supremacy. And he drew the conclusion, this is Neely Fuller's conclusion, that white supremacy is bad, it's unjust, it's inhumane, and that every person living, every good, just, humane person should conduct themselves and construct a way of existing in the world that does not contribute to, validate, or advance white supremacy. We should all live in such a way that does not in any way validate or advance white supremacy. But he also concluded that the only people who were powerful enough, smart enough, beautiful enough to defeat white supremacy are white people. So he came up with a code of conduct, because that's what the code is. Because when you read the code is not so much breaking down white supremacy as it is breaking down how we should behave in response to white supremacy. And so he said we should speak language, wear clothes, interact with each other, or distance ourselves from each other. Our sexual activities, our intimate and interpersonal activity, how we feed and sustain and clothe and house ourselves, even details in very specific detail, when it is justified to use violence, how to utilize that violence, what consequences should we accept about that violence. He breaks it all down. But he says everything you do in response to white supremacy is to motivate, provoke, or stimulate white people to end white supremacy, because only white people can end white supremacy. And I don't know, every time I always bring a copy of my Neely Fuller book up here, and then somebody, we're not going to say her name, there's only 2 women that frequent this house, and one of them is a 1-year-old baby. But one of the 2 women that enter this house constantly comes up here. But anyway, that's what was great about the book. He gave us the term, the concept, the understanding of global white supremacy. He tied it all together. And you might have a brother in Nigeria thinking he's a victim of British colonialism. You have a brother in Senegal thinking he's a victim of the French. You got a brother in Brazil thinking he's a victim of the Portuguese. You got a brother in Haiti thinking he's a victim of the French. You got a brother in New York think he's the victim of a Jewish slumlord. You got a brother in the Midwest who think he's or in the dirty South in Mississippi who thinks he's the victim of a British white Protestant sharecropper. You got a native or indigenous people in Canada think they're the victim of French Catholic colonialism. So we all thought, man, all these Africans and all these non-white people all over the world suffering from, and we fragmented our suffering. He brought all that shit together. He said it's the same people with the same culture. I don't care if they're Protestant, Catholic, Francophone, they speak French, they speak a Romantic language or a Latin language. You know, I don't give a shit. They all white. It's all white supremacy. It's all blanketed system. And they flavor and season it different, but the core substance is the same. That was a great contribution that he made. But, so his analysis, I appreciate. There's some holes in it, but we don't have time to pick that. I appreciate his analysis, but I think that his solutions are absurd. His remedies are absurd, but extremely interesting. Extremely interesting. And I have employed some of his solutions. Not necessarily, I think his solutions will improve how individuals navigate the Black community and navigate the larger world, but his solutions do not solve the core problem that he identified, which is white supremacy. And from that, I'll stop saying white supremacy. I'll go back to saying white hegemony. Because that's what it truly is. They ain't supreme. I'll tell you something. Where is it? Someone asked me about, I'm going to skip that one. That's a bit much. Now, this is from a whole different set of questions that I'm answering now from a different video. Question is, how do you define racism? And very simple. I define it the way Bobby Rice defines it. Oppression and exploitation of a population based on their race and their racial characteristics. That's racism. Where are the best sources of understanding racism? Besides your informative show, you think of the best theorist? I don't know about the best, because a lot of people who write about racism is the oppression and exploitation based on people because of their race. That's what racism is. Racism is, I don't like you, you don't like me, I don't like colored folks. It's irrelevant about how any member of any other race. And in order to oppress and exploit someone, you need control of institutions, infrastructure, means of production. So you can be a racist only if you have power. Now, being a bigot, being prejudiced, that's a whole nother thing. But racism is systemic, it's institutional, requires you having control of the infrastructure, the resources, and the institutions necessary for people's survival. That's what racism requires, technically. Some of the best theorists on it, Marimba Neely, I mentioned earlier, Bobby Wright, Amos M. Wilson, Dale Jones. If you're white and want to read a white person, Michael Bradley. And, you know, there's a whole Tim Scott, I think, is good for white folks. But I digress. What's that guy that from Edge of Sports? He's very good. I'm trying to give some white folks. Yeah, Dave Zarin. He's pretty good at it. Takes one to know one. So those are some of the best theorists. Yurugu is a good book. Iceman's Inheritance. Psychopathic Racial Personalities. A lot of same. And then the same person asked, can you kindly expand on how we experience racism in the room? I want to do another talk on racism. I did a You Can't Eat Racism show, and I was talking about racism in white people. I want to talk about racism in black people because black folks don't understand racism any better than white folks do. You know, it's like you go out on the highway and you'll see 1 million people driving a car. And so, you know, they know how to drive a car. They know how to navigate the streets. But if you ask them about internal combustion, they don't know how the internal combustion engine works. They don't understand rack pinion steering. They don't understand anti-lock brakes. They don't even comprehend what materials are in their car. I think it's some metal and plastic. They don't understand the supply chain, the engineering, the safety features. All they know is this sucker starts and I drive it where I got to go, and I know how much money they're charging me on my car note and my insurance. So you experience a car, you dwell with the car, you even utilize and even derive some benefit, and even there are a lot of harms like the pollution are running you over. So you're fully immersed in car culture, but knowing the intricate infrastructure of cars, you don't know. But you wanted to know, somebody asked about the womb. Now, where's she at? Somebody, she ain't here? Man, ain't nobody here. James is always here. A loyal brother, man. Tell you get a loyal brother. Brotherhood is so important. But anyway, I digress. So racism starts in the womb. African people are subjected to more stress hormones. This is from the research. There's several researchers, but probably the most accessible research and writing on this is Tom Hartman. Tom Hartman said that when a woman is in a high stress environment, it orients her fetus and the development of the fetus and the central nervous system and the hormonal and physiological priorities. So if a woman signals to her baby what type of environment it is coming into. So if a woman is in a high stress environment, the fetus will develop to thrive. So fetuses, they can have things like more sensitivity, sensitive to light, sensitive to noise, lower a weakened ability to respond to stress stimuli. Children that that are birthed by high stress mothers are more prone to cognitive development limits and more prone to infectious diseases. So that's physiologically. So there's physiological due to the level of stress hormones. Also physiological is African people have been forced to live in toxic environments. There's been a ton of research and evidence to confirm that environmental racism, right? And so poor people and African people tend to have higher concentrations of toxic chemicals, hormone replicating, hormone disruption chemicals within our body. Lower quality food, living in higher contaminated areas. Here in Chicago, there's a whole, if you look at Chicago violence, the violence of youth, violent neighborhoods in Chicago, and you look at lead contamination in Chicago, they all track. So there's lead contamination. I remember I was working with the late Dr. Finney. We were going to open an urban farm. He had 5 acres of land, and he was like, "This land's just been sitting, and why don't you come here and we'll get the money, and we're going to do a full-scale farm on 5 acres, and you can grow tonnage on that, and organic gardeners." And I got with him, Dita, putting people together, and I'm like, we got to test the soil first. We test the soil. The soil was highly contaminated. Children play on that, and the soil samples had heavy metals, lead, and shit. So that whole project was scrapped, and it was on the south side of Chicago. But I digress. So environmental issues disrupt. So environmental and like I said, probably the person who Dr. Helen Caldicott and Dr. Tom Hartman are probably the 2 best people to look at on some of the more recent studies in that. Like I was just in Puerto Rico, and my wife was noticing there was a lot of young people had congenital deformations, especially in their limbs, deformed hands, deformed limbs. A lot of congenital deformation, like as you just casually walking the streets of Puerto Rico, in and out of the shops and stuff. And I told her about Vieques and the military, the Navy testing site where the Navy was testing toxic weapons on the island of Vieques. And that's environmental racism. So it plagues poor and oppressed and colonized people everywhere. Someone asked me, what are the sources of European history, pre-colonial history, that talks about the blood and the guts? Like I talk about how savage European history is and stuff. And there's a book, if you just want the salacious stuff, there's this guy who writes these books who just kind of like understand that European history has been extremely glossed over. I might share this too. But James Farman, he goes all the way back to the earliest settlements in Europe or Eurasia. Let me see. I'll share that. So if you want to know about, oops, that's wrong. I should have this together as much as I use it. Just as I learned to navigate the system, they completely changed it. But here's a book. Somebody said they want to know about the part of European history where it isn't all kings and queens and noblemen and noble knights, like the very bloody history of London. He also has a book, The Very Bloody History of Europe. But this will kind of tell you the history that you see on Game of Thrones, that they can show in fiction, and so the show where these people mastered their skills, and from the Vikings, the plagues, the various factions of noble houses like the Tudor War of the Roses, the Victorians, and it's all the way up to Switzerland, all the way up to Margaret Thatcher, to modern times. It's a very bloody history, and this guy is just kind of like the foremost authority on the history that Europeans like. But if you want, and he kind of writes it tongue in cheek, but the shit it's well researched, it's well academic, but it's not written in an academic. If you need a more academic and you want to see one bloody thing after another, the world's gruesome history. Now, this kind of deals with world history, but with a heavy emphasis and focus on Western Europe or Eurasia. So that's another book. So I'm not sure why you asked, but it says, what are good sources of European history that shows the blood and guts and demonstrate the inhumanity they practice on others? They first practice on themselves. There's another book that I can't find a copy of. I was at Professor William Mackey's house, and he put out this book called Dirt. And it was probably one of the best books on European history. This is a book that wasn't meant to be out. It was a very rare book. But I digress. And I can't been able to find that book. And shout out to Professor Mackey. Oh, and just this week, yesterday was Pete O'Neill's birthday. So reach out to the Panther in Africa, the leader of the Kansas City chapter of the Black Panther Party, and wish him a happy 85th birthday. We still have, our ancestors are still with us. There's a couple of other questions. Why did I navigate? There's a couple of other questions. And I'm going to get through these really fast because where's the one? They asked me about kind of explaining how specific racism in the womb. Oh, this one. Which one of Ward Churchill's books does he speak about the systematic destruction of the American left? That's right here. One of the books I was referencing. He also would talk about it in lectures as well, but it's this book right here, Agents of Repression by Ward Churchill and Jim Vanderwall. I don't know which one said it, but this is the book. And this whole book, I think it's on here for free, but this, no, you got to buy it. This is just a sample. Let me see if I can pull up the cover. Anyway, Agents of Repression, the FBI's secret wars against the Black Panther Party and the American Indian movement. And he talks about the systematic deconstruction of the left. So that's that question, Agents of Repression. I tried to find the PDF of that book, but I couldn't find it. And I think there was one more question. Well, they asked me, someone asked me what I thought about the social democracy and the social democracies in Northern Europe. There you are, Brittany. I was just about to, when you was telling folks, you were just telling me about epigenetics last week. I didn't know you was here, Brittany. Where is that question? Lord have his mercy. So anyway, let me just tell you that and I'll go on my way. Democracy, democratic socialism. Somebody asked me about democratic socialism, and I wish I could find that question. Give me 1 second. Y'all been so patient. I know this is janky. This is something new I'm trying with this new formatting of the Q&A and everything. And I appreciate y'all being patient with me. See, I shouldn't have been looking at all that salacious Dr. Umar stuff. Now he's all in my algorithm. Oh, hold on there. Here it is. Here's the question from CD. For the next Q&A, I'd be interested in hearing what you think about democratic socialist states like Norway, how they compare to what we currently have, and whether you think their model is feasible compromise to implement in the future. Punctuation, capitalization will be appreciated. It's kind of hard to read it when it's just kind of written in internet lingo. But what do I think about democratic socialist states like Norway? First of all, they're not socialist. Democratic socialists are not socialists. And I hate to say this. And here's the thing about socialism. Socialism is inherently democratic. It's kind of like saying black African. What other kind of Africans are they? You know, it's kind of like saying sexy red. Name a sister by the name of Red that ain't sexy. You know, it's like, what do they call that? I don't know if this is the right term. What do they call that term? What do you call it when you when the word is the same? You got two words that mean the exact same thing together. What's that called? Is that it, tautology? It's redundant. I know that's what it is, but like saying, well, there's a lot of hot heat or wet water. Redundant. Okay, let's just say it's redundant. I don't know if tautology is it. Oh, yes. Okay, that is it. Who's the nerd that said tautology? That's it. Watch this guy. He's too smart for his own good. Right? Like saying light-skinned DeBarge. Or saying con man Umar. It's synonymous. So you can't have non-democratic socialism. Now, they have these terms like authoritarian socialism, you know. So you can't have, so it's not socialist. Socialism literally means the infrastructure and the means of production and the wealth of the nation belong to everyone. The just, equitable distribution of power, resources, authority. Right? So you can't have a non-democratic socialism. I'm sorry, China. You just can't. So what are democratic socialists? Because it's kind of, and it's also like the word black feminist, where the original term has carried so much negative weight. The original term has so much negative connotation. You got to slap a positive word in front of it so that people will take it. It's candy coating. Like when sisters say feminism, they have to say, well, I'm a black feminist, because feminism has gotten such a bad jacket. They say, I'm a black feminist or black capitalist. Banks have been screwing us over for decades. Banking is a most insidious industry. And you have to say black banks, black business. And we're like, yeah. So we say black shit, black capitalism. So there's also that part of it. They mean the same thing, but then they also, you need the word democratic. But long story short is, democratic socialists are basically a population of bureaucrats and politicians that believe that they can implement policies within the capitalist economy that will allow more benefits to come to the masses and reduce the level of harm. Because even Hillary Clinton admitted capitalism is a great system, she said, but you can't let it run amok. If you let capitalism run its natural course, it's like cancer. It will destroy you. So we want a little cancer, we want a little malignancy, but we want to contain that malignancy so that it doesn't kill the organism. That's basically what democratic socialists do. So democratic socialists say we'll have a capitalist economy, we'll have an imperialist government, we'll have racism, authoritarianism, but the revenues and the benefits generated by capitalist endeavors will pay for healthcare, will pay for school, will provide for arts and leisures, will limit the workday, will give injury insurance, and will give these benefits to the people to prevent the rebellion and uprising that comes inherently and naturally from capitalism. Capitalism is unfair and unjust. Human beings, being the empathetic primates that we evolved to be, tend to rebel and have an instinctive love of justice and an instinctive hostility to what we deem to be unfair and unjust. So democratic socialists basically go to the capitalists and say, hey, here are some policies that you can implement to preserve your power. Give some level of benefits. And then people talk about Norway. If you look at Norway, yes, Norway people, they're very happy on their little bicyclettes, their little bikes. They're riding their bikes around, eating their weird ass, bland ass, nasty ass fucking food. Being up there in Northern Europe and like, we're not like the British. We're not like the Germans. We're not like the Spaniards and the poor. We're just the good white folks. White folks up there in their little wooden shoes. But if you look into Norway, this democratic socialist country, they have the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. $1.7 trillion, the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. What is sovereign wealth? I'm not going to get into it. But sovereign wealth is nothing but pure, unabashed neo-imperialism and neo-colonialism. It's dollar colonialism. It's moneyed colonialism. And sovereign wealth funds can prop up dictators and collapse economies in the third world, just like the armies of old school colonialism did. Moving money across borders is as dangerous as moving troops across border, even more dangerous because it's more insidious. Because you got an imperial soldier kicking in your door, at least you know who the enemy is, but you got a sovereign wealth fund hollowing out your country and stealing your natural resources. You start looking at people, oh, it's because we twerk too much, because we don't pray well, because we don't work hard enough. So if you look at the economy of all the so-called social democracy, they're all predatory. Not to mention the racism, the eugenics, the Darwinist Malthusian eugenics. And most of these social democracy, they are in bed with the capitalists. Look at Sweden, look at Norway, look at Switzerland, look at Finland, look at their top trading partners. So they getting paid off the blood, but they just letting the U.S. soldiers and the British capitalists do their dirty work. So what social democracy has devolved into is a more just way to distribute the spoils of white imperialism and white hegemony. So we could take the spoils of empire and give it all to the rich, or we could take the spoils of empire and give some benefits to the working class as well. It ain't tricking if you got it. It ain't, I mean, if you can get it. So I have no respect, no love, and no solidarity with the democratic socialists, even though I would vote for and support democratic socialist policies. But what we need, but democratic socialist policies are more inclined to preserve white hegemony and capitalism than they are to undermine it. So I'm not saying go get your free healthcare, go get your free college tuition. But at the same time, you can't rest there because the ecosystem is still being destroyed, and these genocidal madmen are still destroying the life sustaining capacity of the earth. And the democratic socialist nations still need the masses of humanity to live in poverty and squalor in order to sustain their way of life. So you'll never catch me singing the praises of European democratic socialists. Because you'll notice they don't call for an end to imperialism. And like I said, if you go back to the COVID, these same nations where they're like, oh, the happiness index, they love writing these little articles about Northern Europe. Oh, the happiest people in the world and the fittest walkability, they're walkable. Oh, they're sustainable policies. Man, fuck them motherfuckers. They just as bad as they white cousins. They're brutal. You know, I don't care if you're riding a little sustainable scooter in Norway or you're driving a Hummer in Mississippi. It's still white hegemony. It's still capitalism. We still have to fight it if we want to sustain the planet's ecosystem and our existence. Anyway, let's move on to this Epstein shit. This is going to be real quick. This is real funny. I just throw my notes away like I'm done. So if you've been in the United States, this whole Jeffrey Epstein stuff, I'm sick of hearing about it, frankly. Let me tell you something. I'm just jump to it. White people, these white conservatives don't give a fuck about the children. They don't care. They don't even care about what Epstein did. Let me tell you why they're so caught up on this Epstein thing. This Epstein thing was a validation of their delusions. The white right-winger, white conservatives, white evangelical, MAGA, Tea Party, QAnon motherfuckers have created this myth, and it is a myth about the left. That the left, because the left says, hey, we support trans identity, we support trans right, we support the gays, the LGBTQAI+, we support the women and women's rights, we acknowledge patriarchy, because we take these liberal leftist woke positions that they believe, a psychopath believes that nobody is good as them. So you got these psychopathic white conservatives that are like, yo, I know I'm a wretched person that don't give a fuck about nothing or nobody. So anybody that says they care about others is virtue signaling. They're pretending, they're lying, right? And so they have this narrative that all these good things that the woke people say they want, starting from liberals all the way to far left, starting from reformists all the way to revolutionaries, anybody that is not far right, white nationalist, imperialist, evangelical, heterosexual, cisgendered, all that shit, they believe that, hey, they're not the good guys. Deep down, they have this thing going on where they're abusing children. So if I say I'm for gay rights, oh, he really wants to abuse children. If I'm for women's rights, oh, he wants to destroy the family. If I say I support refugees and immigrants, and I believe that the human and civil rights of refugees should be respected, oh, he wants the downfall of America. Hey, what happened? What y'all doing? Your hairdo? That's the hairdo you did last time. Hey, did she enjoy the park? Hey, Miss Izzy. Say hi. She can say. Oh, there she is. Hey, say hi, Izzy. Now get out of here. You know, now you want to freeze up. You yelling and running around all day, but now you want to be freeze up. Anyway, come on, take her away. She can't say. No. Take her away. I spent a lot of time. Come on, listen. Okay. The nanny. Do I need to hire a new nanny? Take the child away. See, that's how baller parents. I can just wave my hand. The child comes and the child goes. That's how baller. I'm a baller parent. But yeah, that nanny, I don't think she's gonna work out. You see how many times I had to tell her to go away. Anyway, where was I? So anyway, these right-wingers who are all up in arms about the Epstein files, they believe there's so many things that converge on this Epstein stuff. And I'm not saying Epstein is everything folks say he is. Predator supreme. A predator with unlimited resources. Because you see how much damage your broke ass nasty uncles couldn't do. You see how much damage over generations across a community a broke down ass, no money having, struggle bum ass predator can do in your community or in your family. So imagine a predator with the full weight and support of the Mossad and an unlimited amount of money. Imagine. So I'm not taking away. So I'm not talking about Epstein and his harm. I'm talking about the right wingers who are mad about this, who they don't really care. Right? So their thing is there's a convergence because these Nazis, they're anti-Semitic, right? So you got a Jewish person who they believe is aligned with the left, who is going to expose that all these people who advocate for progressive reforms, who advocate for revolution, all these people who advocate for leftists. So that's why they were like, we want Epstein, because Epstein is going to blow the lid off of. He's going to blow the lid off the Democrats. He's going to blow the lid off of Black Lives Matter. He's going to blow the lid off the liberals. He's going to blow the lid off the woke. He's going to blow the lid off of all this right leftist stuff. Everything they don't like. Epstein was the one thing that was going to prove everything they believe about the liberals and the left and the progressive and the Democrats and women and disabled people. He was that. Right? And the anti-Semitic slant to boot. But now that it's oozing out that, wait a minute, just like the major Because all of the systemic predation, I'm not talking about individual predators. I'm talking about predators that were able to act on a scale that spans decades and spans continent, and then involves billions of dollars and the cooperation and coordination of hundreds, if not thousands of people. Predators at that scale, they're all right wing. They were telling us the trans and the drag queens. But every time there's some large scale institutional level of abuse, it always is rooted in the right wing. From the Catholic Church, the Baptist Convention, the RNC, the right wing, the athletic system, the women's, the Olympic Committee, how much abuse of young girls and young aspiring athletes in the Olympics. It's always capitalist. It's always right wing. Even the UN, World Bank, IMF, it's always power. It's not the activist. It's not the people outside of the halls of power. So now that there's this confluence, and let me tell y'all something about anti-Semitism. And I know this is going to sound weird coming at a time that there's so much lie being told. Because if you say, I oppose Zionism, I oppose the genocide, people will call you anti-Semitic. That ain't no goddamn anti-Semitic. In fact, you cannot, being anti-Zionism is anti-Semitic. If you talk to the average Orthodox, truly religious Jewish person, none of them support Israel because it conflicts with their prophecy. It conflicts with their scriptures. Yahweh said, I will not put new wine into old wineskin. The establishment of the state of Israel is not supposed to come from a negotiated with the enemies of Israel. It's supposed to come from on high, descend from on high. Go back and read the scriptures related to the establishment of the kingdom. And I have to say, but I can't get into this, Jewish people get blamed. Israel is a Christian mission. The establishment and support for every Jewish Zionist you find, there are literally 1,000 Christian Zionists backing them up. Christian Zionists outnumber Jewish Zionists 1,000 to 1. But that's a whole nother discussion. And it's crazy to me that people, I oppose Zionism, and then you sitting up in a Protestant or Catholic church, and you think Zionism would not exist without the Christians. Period. But I digress. All that to say is, here's the thing about anti-Semitism and why I hate that Black people believe that, are fooled by anti-Semites. Because the anti-Semites will come to the Black community and say, well, the Jewish people, they own slums, they own the ratty grocery stores, and Jewish people this, and Black folks fall into that shit. Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam played a big role in that. But here's the whole thing. What do the anti-Semites, what's their gripe with the Jewish people? What do they accuse the Jewish people of doing? They always say, going back to Mein Kampf, going back to Hitler, they say one of the worst things that the cabal, the learned elders do, is that they want to weaken and destroy Christendom, Western civilization, by facilitating the infiltration of white society by non-white people. Hitler was like, the Jews are bringing jazz to Germany. The Jews are bringing hip hop to the suburbs. They were saying that. Tipper Gore. So even when they're attacking Jews, and we look at it and say, well, the Jews and the Protestants and the Christians, they've been fighting each other. They're still targeting us. There is not one anti-Semite that's not also a severe racist, because racism, anti-African, anti-Black, white supremacy is at the core of anti-Semitism. But because we get confused And we even buy into the false rhetoric that there is any connection between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And then we start flirting with anti-Semitism because a lot of anti-Semites will come out and say they oppose Israel. But a lot of anti-Semites who oppose Zionism, they don't oppose genocide. They don't oppose colonialism. They celebrate their ancestors. They put the flags of colonists on their wall. They just don't like the Jewish people who do it. They love it when white Protestants or white Catholics do. So there is a level of complexity here. Revolution is an intellectual endeavor, and there are these overlaps. We have to have clarity on. We have to oppose anti-Semitism. We have to oppose it as strongly and aggressively as we oppose racism and Zionism. And don't be not confused. That was Kwame Ture's. If you ever listen to a Kwame Ture lecture, he says, be not confused. Be not confused. My brothers and sisters, be not confused. Because I can understand how the confusion. I even fall into some of the confusion. But anyway, getting back to this Epstein stuff. They don't care about the abuse of children. The right wing, the MAGAs, the conservatives. They don't care. The white aggressors, the white hegemons, they don't care about children. The international and local bodies that oppose for the organization for missing and exploited children, the scholars, the social workers, the psychologists, the physicians, the nurses that work with rescuing children from abusive situations, healing and preventing that, they all say, here are the specific policies that will allow for fewer children to fall, to be vulnerable to trafficking, to be vulnerable from being preyed upon, to allow for when they do become victims, that will allow for them to come forward. Every single policy that the scholars and the experts, those who work with children, say should be implemented. All of the resources, the funding, the budgets necessary for protecting children, the right-wing Republicans, the MAGA movement opposes it. The MAGA movement opposes all policies that will truly protect children. They're not interested in protecting children. They're interested in demonizing the left. And most of them don't even know. That's the whole fight of this MAGA thing. They don't care that Trump is implicated. But the problem is that they were told a lie. They're very unintelligent. There are a lot of intelligent racism, but these particular racists are very unintelligent. They were told lies. Hey, the Epstein files will show that all these people advocating for progressive and democratic and liberal policies, they're all a bunch of predators. They had Pizzagate, and they believed that whole Pizzagate nonsense. You go all the way back. And white people have always, and even the average white person knows in their heart it's not true. But they get to stand up and say, I want the files released. I want to protect children. And what's really funny to me, they want to look at the Epstein files, but the Catholic Church and the Baptist Convention, you already got that have abused more children than Epstein. So if you're going to do something about the abuse of children, you're going to pretend to give a damn. I'm not going to bog y'all down. I did a whole presentation discussion. The Southern Baptists covered up for decades, for more than half a century. The Southern Baptist Convention had widespread systematic child abuse. And what is the Southern Baptist Convention? Those are the Confederates. I guarantee you, if you see a white person waving a Confederate flag, they make over 90% of the evangelicals, the largest percentage of MAGA, the Confederates, all Southern Baptists. But they want to pretend like they care. They want to pretend like they care. You want to know another one? Here's another that did more than here's another one. Another beautiful, strong Christian institution. And I've covered this before. This ain't nothing new. I'm just saying these people don't give a damn. Because even while you're waiting for the Epstein files, there are religious institutions, a timeline of sexual abuse by the Boy Scouts of America. The Boy Scouts of America had to file for bankruptcy. Because they couldn't afford more than 82,000 sexual abuse victims. The Boy Scouts, wholesome. The Boy Scouts were not just hiring known pedophiles, covering from them and transferring them. This is beyond. We all know the Catholic Church. The Boy Scouts was an ultra-conservative, right-wing, Mormon Christian institution. If you were an atheist, you couldn't be a scout leader. When I was a Cub Scout, we met in a church. 82,000. And when these are the abuse victims, that come forward. And you know the nature of child abuse, only a fraction ever comes forward. And the Boy Scouts of America is like, listen, we've been abusing so many kids for so damn long. Look at that. We ain't got the money to pay them. It's billions of dollars. There's so many victims, almost 100,000. When have you seen a white conservative kick in the doors of the Boy Scouts of America? Oh, it's the Hollywood elites and cabals, eyes wide shut. You like the spooky shit. And this shit where there is hard evidence, you ain't got to speculate. So what the fuck you think they're going to do when they get the Epstein files and it shows it's right-wing conservatives, it's capitalists, leaders of industry? What do you think they're going to do? They ain't going to do a damn thing because they don't care. It's just like the white men when they had to protect the virtue of white women. So they would lynch black men and they protect the virtue of white women. And then you find out the number one predator, abuser of white women was other white men. What did they do? Did they change the laws? No, they just went home. Protecting the virtue. Oh, the children. They ain't done nothing about the gun violence. More children will die of gun violence in 1 month in America than die in 10 years overseas. Children die of gun violence at the highest rate in the world. And they're steadily letting more guns flood the streets. They just allow for contaminations and hunger, housing. The Republican, the right wing, the conservatives don't give a damn. This Epstein thing ain't got nothing to do with protecting children or even punishing those who are guilty. Because even according to the own DOJ report, there are no, besides Ghislaine Maxwell, the statute of limitations, they would have to reform that because most of the people accused over the timeline, the statute of limitations had passed. And here's another thing about it. The victims are still out there. One of the victims committed suicide. But Epstein's victims are out there now. None of the journalists are talking to him. None of the right-wingers. How come Joe Rogan hasn't had, you could line up all of Epstein's victims right in front of you across from that table, Joe Rogan. He don't give a shit. The moment they figure out that they can't use the Epstein files to attack progressive liberals, leftists, they're going to forget about them. They don't care about children. There are children being victimized. Even if while you wait for the Epstein files, I can provide you files from institutions of systemic child abuse. The Jehovah's Witness, the Mormon Church. Do I need Mormon? There's an interesting documentary. I think it goes a little soft called Keep Sweet. Oh my God. See how people don't listen? I don't know if you're new to this. You see, this is what I got to deal with. This is the kind of response I got to deal with. Did I stutter? I'll tell you what, Dre, maybe you came late. Why don't you go back and listen real slow? Put it on half speed. Put it on half speed and listen. And if you're still unclear about what I'm saying, then you can send them. I'll expect you can ask clarifying questions in the comments, and I will try to help you. Oh, I'm sorry. See, sorry about that, Dre. Then I guess I owe you an apology. I'll go back and read your comment. Then why don't you say everybody else be at who? You see at? See, that's better. At. Put at who, because I might take it personal. Sorry about that, Dre. Without. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. It's just, it kind of heartens me. I've been talking about right now. Oh, let me tell you one more thing. Talking about, the Epstein files, the Epstein files. Let me tell you something. Capitalism, imperialism, child abuse. You have any nation that is oriented around extraction of wealth, that look at the citizens as human resources. For any time you allow your society, your economy, your elites to define you as a resource, they're going to exploit you. And no one is exempt, from the elders to the children. So if you really want to protect and save the children, if you really want to protect and save the children, again, another tip of the iceberg. Sorry, I'll share one more. But like I said, here's another thing that's going around everywhere. Nearly 1,000 lawsuits allege sexual abuse at Illinois' Cook County Juvenile Detention Center. They were bringing children in there and trafficking children, vulnerable children. And you know who they got in this detention center. Black boys make up black juveniles make up less than 6% of the juvenile population, and like 80 to 90% of the inmates. And that's just the boys. And the girls, black women, it's not as high as like maybe 70% of the young girls detention center. Thousands. These are the lawsuits. This is not the victims. Right now, they're trying to send victims. There are commercials, there's billboards all over Chicago saying, and this is on Fox News, if you were a child inmate, if you were arrested, detained, or incarcerated at the Cook County, Illinois, that's just Cook County. That's not all of Illinois. That's not the U.S. But y'all talking about Epstein files. And that, the Cook County law enforcement, the Cook County Sheriff's Department, the Chicago Police Department, those are right-wing institutions. Chicago is a blue city, but when you look at the corrections officers and the police officers, they all MAGA. And most people around here are Democrats, they all MAGA. They don't give a shit about children. The Epstein files, they don't give a shit. They are fronting because they believe that the Epstein files will confirm fallacies. But even what's leaking out now is showing that this is a right-wing conservative, ultra-nationalist, fascist issue. Not saying that liberals and progressives don't do this, don't abuse children. They do. Look at Dr. Fubar. This woman said that Fubar is a financial predator. And I'm like, wow, is that a thing? They said he's a financial predator. He seduces women, vulnerable women who believe in him and believe in the cause. And he's a financial. So I'm not saying, but when I'm talking about Epstein level, when it becomes institutional, when it becomes the power brokers, and when it becomes systemic and sustained across decades, it's always a conservative or right-wing institution. There's a website called Right Wing Watch, and all they do every day, I'm like, damn, it's the Reich Watch. Not Right Wing Watch, I'm sorry, Reich. Right Watch. Sorry. I'm sorry. Where is that site? I can't. Wow. I mean, these search engines. Damn. Whenever it's a positive site. Wow. But there was this site called Reich Watch, like Third Reich, REICH, like the Third Reich, the Nazis. And basically all they did was watch fascist crimes across the world. Like anytime a right-wing crime was committed, they would post it. I haven't been to the site in a little while, but I don't think, at least it's not showing up in the search engine. If I find it, I'll share it. But in Reich Watch, they have a whole section that deals exclusively with right-wing, ultra-conservative, MAGA predators. And I just don't see it. Wow, I can't believe I can't find it. And every day. And what's really crazy is they'll show the right-wing conservative, generally with his mugshot, and then they'll show all the stuff he was saying about protecting children, about drag queens and tranny semen and all that shit. And then go look up the stories. I won't get into it. I know some of y'all maybe ain't had dinner yet, but about the Republican convention and all the sex trafficking that goes around the Republican convention. Anyway, that's it. I just couldn't find it. Oh, is it right? Oh, it's Right Ring Watch. There it is. There it is. Well, at least I was able to find their Insta. Look at it. I wonder if it'll come up. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. Right Wing Watch. Miami man affiliated with Republican Party has been arrested for distributing videos of children. Far right father moved. Oh, that's a different. It's just, well, you have to go, but you go to their Instagram and you go to their website, and it's all these right wing. I don't see the part that's. Oh, here it is. Pedal. Wolander, give me time. Just take my word for it. It's Right Ring. I just thought it was Right Watch, and it's not loading. Anyway, they have this whole thing on pedo Republicans. So it kind of disturbs me that there are some black people who truly believe that the MAGA movement and that the right wingers were the ones who want to protect children. And the reality is that the right wing pose the greatest threat to adults and children and the elderly and animals. That's it. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for, I said, I don't need, thank you, Avon, for the sticker. These ways support. Like I said, I blame myself. Like I said, I'm a victim blaming, so I might as well victim blame myself because I'm a victim. But the support has dried up for the BroDiallo broadcast, and I'm not sure what I done did, but whatever I did, I'm sorry. So please come back to supporting the BroDiallo show if it's good to be sustained. If not, we can shut it down. Yeah, I might not be around longer for all the times I said anti-Semitism and Zionism in this show. I'm sure YouTube might have some words for me. More merch. I'm working on it. Like I said, these two calloused hands. I was hoping my hands would show up better, like more masculine hands, but I mean, they're a little calloused. But I'm doing the best. It's a one-man band here, but I appreciate you listening. If you can't support, there's other ways to support. Like, share, subscribe, share the BroDiallo broadcast with your friends, enemies, allies, lovers, haters, and imitators. And I appreciate that as much as the monetary support. So anyway, that's it. And Wednesday, me and Skip will be back Wednesday. Friday, class con, me and James will be on deck. And whoever might come. And again, you can leave any questions in the comments. and I'll try to deal with them. Please keep them short and concise, and I always appreciate punctuation and proper capitalization. Just train up the way we supposed to. You ain't gonna play with this white man's language, right? Anyway, I appreciate y'all. Until next week.